adding text to a 3D surface. First open the page. Now I'm going to add a 3D rectangle. Just change the size of the rectangle by changing the width and the height. Now I'm going to make a material to go on the front surface of the rectangle. Make the diffuse colour blue. Now I'm going to add a texture page. I go to my scene tree so I can see my front face. I now look at my material palette, drag my material onto the word front. Go to the properties of the surface, I open up the front, now I can see my material override. Click on the little plus next to type, then under texture page I choose 2K. This sets a new tab top left called texture page. I click on this and this is my surface I'm going to map onto the area. I click on the select rectangle, then choose the object I'm mapping. Hit fit to face. Now this area will map onto the surface. I click on text page. Set the size of my type. Now I'm going to enter 3 lines of text. I'm entering my 3 lines of text now because it's easier to do this now than later. I'm spacing my lines out. You can either do this with Ctrl Windows Alt down arrow, or I'm just putting some spaces in. For each line I'm going to add a field. This is so we can update the page later via automation or using the Field Marker Manager. At the moment, line 3 is mapped onto the surface. So what I need to do is move the mapping area up so it's above line 1. Hit Escape to unselect the text. Hit Select Rectangle. Then I move my rectangle up to the correct position. I'm just going to recenter it by clicking 1024. That's going to reset the width to 2042. Now I go back to my page. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to reposition my rectangle. I'm going to open up the timeline. Then I'm going to activate rotation, and then I'm going to animate the rotation. I go to frame 12 on my timeline, turn on auto keyframe, then right click, add keyframe. Going back to the first keyframe, now I modify the first position so it flips over. I'm going to hide the back so I can flip it over with a greater extent. Here's my animation. Going back to the scene tree, I select my rectangle 1, right click copy, select scene 1, right click paste. I'm going to add this to timeline 1. I'm going to right click again and paste again onto timeline 1, and this is going to put rectangle 3 in for me. Choosing rectangle 2, I go to the properties and I reposition it. Choosing rectangle 3, I position rectangle 3. Now I go back to my texture page. Go into Graphics Tools, I do the Select Rectangle, and then I'm going to choose Rectangle 2. To move the Rectangle 2 mapping area down, what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to hold the down arrow on the Y position. This takes a little while, but it does reposition. For Rectangle 3's front face, I'm just going to drag this down. Going back to page, I can now see I have lines 1, 2 and 3 on my objects. If I scroll along the timeline, I can see all 3 objects animate together at the same time. Now I'm going to select Rectangle 2 and just drag that timeline a little bit later. If I open up Timeline 3, you can see the 2 keyframes for the rotation, but again I can just drag the top of the timeline and move that rectangle timeline along. So here's my animation. I'm just going to preview it now in the edit window. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to set my master preview frame. Close my edit window, save the page. Now I'm just going to right click on the page thumbnail and take page to air. This is prep so I can see it in my UI.